May 1943, North Atlantic. Kapitänleutnant Erich Topp stood in U-552's conning tower, scanning the empty horizon through his Zeiss binoculars. The ocean was eerily calm, too calm. After 3 years of brutal warfare at sea, Topp had learned one ironclad rule: trust your instincts. And right now, every instinct was screaming danger. Below deck, his crew was preparing for what should have been just another routine patrol. U-552 had sent 35 Allied ships to the bottom, nearly 200,000 tons of shipping. Topp was one of Germany's most decorated U-boat commanders, holder of the Knight's Cross with oak leaves. His men had given him a nickname, the Ghost of the Atlantic. But on this patrol, the Ghost was about to discover something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about submarine warfare. The convoy materialized at dawn. 40 merchant ships stretched across the horizon like a floating metropolis. Topp's pulse accelerated. This was the kind of target that built legends, the kind of target that won wars. He raised his hand to give the attack order, then he heard it, a sound that shouldn't exist, a sound that made his blood turn to ice, a high-pitched electronic pulse coming from directly above. The turning point in late 1942, Germany was dominating the submarine war. U-boats operated in coordinated wolf packs, guided by B-Dienst intelligence that could decrypt British naval codes almost in real time. Admiral Dönitz commanded over 400 operational U-boats, more than enough to completely strangle Britain's Atlantic lifeline. The numbers told a devastating story. In November 1942 alone, U-boats sank 119 Allied ships totaling 729,000 tons. British merchant fleet losses exceeded new construction by 300,000 tons every single month. At this rate, Britain would run out of food and fuel by summer 1943. Winston Churchill later admitted, "The only thing that ever really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril. I was even more anxious about this battle than I had been about the glorious air fight called the Battle of Britain." But by May 1943, something had fundamentally changed. Allied shipping losses had plummeted by 75% in just 3 months. U-boat losses had tripled. Experienced commanders like Topp, men who had survived dozens of patrols, were reporting encounters they couldn't explain, ships detecting them in absolute darkness, aircraft finding them in thick fog, destroyers tracking them underwater with impossible precision. German naval high command was baffled. Their intelligence suggested no major Allied technological breakthrough. Their cryptographers confirmed British codes remained secure. Yet somehow, Allied forces were hunting U-boats with almost supernatural accuracy. Topp had heard the rumors in the officers' mess at Lorient, wild theories about secret weapons, about traitors in their midst, about supernatural detection methods. He dismissed them as paranoid fantasies of exhausted men, until that morning in May when he heard the pulse. The first encounter: alarm, clear the bridge. The crew reacted instantly. Klaxons blared, men scrambled down the ladder, diesel engines cut as electric motors engaged. U-552's bow tilted sharply downward, but even as they dove, Topp knew something was terribly wrong. The electronic pulse had come from directly overhead, but there was no aircraft visible. The sky was empty except for scattered clouds at 3,000 feet. "Level off at 60 meters, he ordered. Silent running. In the control room, First Watch Officer Klaus Bergmann looked at him questioningly. "Captain, what did you see?" "Nothing," Topp admitted, "but I heard something, an electronic signal, very high frequency." Bergmann frowned. "ASDIC, but we were still on the surface." "Not ASDIC, something else." They waited in tense silence. The only sounds were the hum of electric motors and the creak of the pressure hull. Topp checked his watch. 5 minutes, 10, 15. Then they heard it, the unmistakable drone of aircraft engines growing steadily louder. The hydrophone operator called out, "Twin engines, heavy, probably a Liberator." Topp felt ice forming in his stomach. They'd been 12 kilometers from the convoy when they dove. The Liberator should have been searching near the merchant ships, not here. Yet somehow it had come straight to their exact position. How was that possible? The depth charges began falling. 6 explosions, each one closer than the last. The hull groaned under the pressure. Light bulbs shattered. Men grabbed handholds as the boat pitched violently. But U-552 was deep enough. The charges exploded above them, deadly but not fatal. After 20 minutes, the Liberator moved away. Topp waited another hour before surfacing. When they finally broke through, the convoy had vanished over the horizon. An entire day's pursuit wasted. That night, Topp wrote in his patrol log, "Detected by unknown means while still on surface. Aircraft appeared within minutes despite no visual contact. Recommend urgent investigation of possible new Allied detection technology." He didn't know it yet, but he had just encountered centimetric radar, a technology so secret that even most Allied commanders didn't fully understand how it worked. The night attack 3 days later, Topp located another convoy. This time, he would be more cautious. He stayed submerged during daylight, tracking the merchant ships by periscope. He would attack at night, when U-boats held every advantage. Submarines in 1943 were actually surface vessels that could dive temporarily. They were faster on the surface, had superior visibility, and could use their deck guns to conserve precious torpedoes. Night attacks were the U-boats' natural hunting ground. Darkness made them invisible to aircraft and nearly impossible for escorts to spot. At 2300 hours, U-552 surfaced 8 kilometers from the convoy. The night was perfect for attack, overcast, no moon, visibility less than 500 meters. Topp could see the dark shapes of merchant ships silhouetted against the stars, but they couldn't possibly see him. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Prepare tubes 1 through 4. The torpedo crew worked with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, all 4 bow tubes were loaded and ready. Topp calculated the firing solution personally. Speed, distance, angle. After 3 years of war, he could do it almost by instinct. He raised his hand to give the firing order. Then the sea around them exploded in brilliant light. A star shell burst directly overhead, transforming night into day. U-552 was suddenly exposed, caught in blinding white light like an insect under a microscope. Topp spun around. A British destroyer was charging straight at them, bow wave brilliant white in the artificial daylight. It had appeared from nowhere. No warning, no radar contact, just suddenly there. "Alarm, dive, dive!" But it was too late. The destroyer was too close, moving too fast. As U-552's bow dipped below the surface, Topp saw the depth charge racks on the destroyer's stern tilt backward. The first pattern of charges exploded just as they passed 30 meters. The boat bucked like a wild animal. Cork insulation rained from the overhead. The main electrical panel sparked and went dark. "Damage report," Topp shouted over the chaos. "Stern diving planes jammed, hydraulic leak in the control room, port electric motor overheating." More depth charges, closer this time. The pressure hull groaned, a sound every submariner dreaded. It meant the steel was flexing beyond its design limits. "Take her to 180 meters, Topp ordered. It was deeper than recommended, but they had no choice. For 3 hours, the destroyer hunted them. It stayed directly overhead with uncanny accuracy, dropping depth charges in a methodical pattern. Every time Topp tried to slip away, the destroyer adjusted course to follow. Finally, at 300 hours, the attack stopped. Topp waited another 2 hours before surfacing. When they finally broke through, the convoy was long gone. The pattern by the 3rd week of May, Topp had sunk only 2 ships, a pathetic result for a commander of his experience. Worse, he'd been forced to dive 14 times to avoid aircraft. His fuel was running dangerously low. His crew was physically and mentally exhausted. But the real problem was the pattern he was seeing, a pattern that made absolutely no sense. That evening, Topp spread his charts across the wardroom table. Bergman and the chief engineer joined him. "Look at this," Topp said, marking positions with a red pencil. "Every time we've been detected in the last 3 weeks, 14 incidents, what do you see?" Bergman studied the marks carefully. "They're all completely different situations. Day, night, fog, clear weather, surface, periscope depth, near convoys, far from convoys." "Exactly," Topp said. "There's no pattern to when we're detected, which means they can always detect us," the chief engineer finished quietly. The 3 men looked at each other. The implications were staggering. Topp pulled out another chart, this one showing U-boat losses across the entire Atlantic. The numbers were absolutely devastating. In the first 20 days of May, 31 U-boats had been sunk. 31. That was more than the entire month of April, more than any single month in the entire war. "The Americans are building Liberty ships faster than we can sink them," Topp said. April, they launched 140 new merchant ships. We sank 56. That's a net gain of 84 ships for the Allies. Every month they get stronger. Every month we get weaker. He drew a simple graph on the chart. 2 lines, one ascending, one descending. They crossed in July. "If this continues, by summer we won't be able to sink enough ships to matter. The convoy system will be unbreakable. And if we can't break the convoys..." He didn't need to finish. They all understood. Germany's entire war strategy depended on starving Britain into surrender. If the U-boats failed, Germany would lose the war. Bergman voiced the question they were all thinking. "What changed? 6 months ago we were winning. Now we can barely survive a patrol. What did the Allies develop?" Topp shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not just one thing. They're detecting us on the surface. That's probably radar, but more advanced than anything we've encountered. They're finding us at night, which shouldn't be possible, and they're tracking us underwater with accuracy that exceeds ASDIC by an order of magnitude. The chief engineer pulled out a technical manual. Our Metox receivers can detect British radar at 30 kilometers, but we're being found by aircraft that our Metox never picks up. Either they've developed radar operating on a completely different frequency, or Metox doesn't work anymore, Topp finished. Which means every U-boat in the Atlantic is operating blind. The implications were terrifying. Hundreds of U-boats were operating under the assumption that Metox would warn them of approaching aircraft. If that assumption was wrong, they were all sailing into death traps. Topp made a decision. I'm breaking radio silence. Naval Command needs to know what we're seeing. It was dangerous. British direction-finding stations could triangulate radio transmissions within minutes, but the risk was worth it. He drafted the message carefully. Detected repeatedly by unknown means. Aircraft locate U-552 in zero visibility. Surface radar detection without METOX warning. Night attacks by destroyers with impossible accuracy. Request immediate technical analysis. TOPP. The radio operator encoded the message and transmitted in a 3-second burst. Then they dove and changed course. Standard procedure after any transmission. The reply came 6 hours later. Your report acknowledged. Similar REPORTS from multiple BOATS. Technical investigation UNDRWII. Continue patrol, Durnitz. Topp read the message twice. Similar reports from multiple boats. So it wasn't just U-552. It wasn't just him. The entire U-boat force was encountering the same phenomenon. Something had fundamentally changed in the Battle of the Atlantic. And the German Navy had no idea what it was. The final attack, May 24, 1943. U-552 was running on the surface, charging batteries. It was 400 hours, the darkest part of the night, supposedly the safest time for a U-boat. Topp was in the conning tower with 2 lookouts. They scanned the sky continuously, binoculars sweeping in overlapping arcs. Standard procedure. The procedure that had kept them alive for 3 years. The Metox receiver was completely silent. No radar emissions detected. Then, without any warning whatsoever, searchlights blazed from directly overhead. A Liberator bomber appeared out of the absolute darkness, already in its attack run. It was less than 200 meters away, so close Topp could see the pilot's face in the cockpit. There was no time to dive, no time to man the anti-aircraft guns, no time to do anything except watch the depth charges fall. The charges hit the water as U-552's bow went under. The first explosion caught them at 15 meters, shallow enough that the full force of the blast hammered the hull like a giant's fist. The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, then died. In the sudden darkness, men shouted, metal groaned, water sprayed from ruptured pipes. Battery-powered lamps came on, casting everything in dim red light. Topp pulled himself to the control room, his ears ringing from the blast. The damage reports came in rapid succession, each one worse than the last. Forward torpedo room taking water. Stern planes not responding. Pressure hull cracked near frame 47. Battery compartment flooding. Topp processed the information with the cold clarity that came from years of experience. U-552 was dying. They had minutes, maybe less, before the boat became uncontrollable. Blow all tanks. Compressed air roared into the ballast tanks. The bow tilted sharply upward. U-552 clawed toward the surface like a wounded animal. They broke through at 4:07 hours. Water cascaded off the deck. The Liberator was still there, circling for another attack run. Prepare to scuttle, Topp ordered. The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite their fear. This was the moment every submariner trained for and prayed would never come. They opened the scuttling valves, set demolition charges on the code books and Enigma machine, and climbed onto the deck. The Liberator made another pass but didn't drop charges. The pilot could see men on deck. U-552 was clearly finished. Topp was the last man out. He stood in the conning tower watching his boat die. U-552 settled lower in the water, bow rising as the stern filled. 3 years of war, 35 ships sunk. Countless patrols survived. And now destroyed by an enemy they never saw coming. As the water reached the conning tower, Topp jumped. The cold Atlantic swallowed him. When he surfaced, U-552 was gone, just bubbles and debris marking where she'd been. The truth revealed the Liberator dropped life rafts and flew away. A British destroyer arrived 2 hours later and picked up the survivors, 42 men out of a crew of 48. On the destroyer's deck, wrapped in blankets and drinking hot tea, Topp finally understood what had happened. A young British officer showed him the radar display, a circular screen with glowing green dots. "That's how we found you," he said, not unkindly. "Centimetric radar. We can see you from 30 kilometers away, any weather, day or night. Your Metox can't detect it because it operates on a completely different wavelength." Topp stared at the screen. Each green dot represented a U-boat. Each one visible, trackable, vulnerable. How long have you had this? Since March, every aircraft, every escort ship, the entire Atlantic is covered. Topp felt something break inside him, not despair, he was too professional for that, but the cold certainty that the war was lost. The U-boat campaign had depended entirely on invisibility, on being able to hide in the vastness of the Atlantic, to strike without warning and vanish before escorts could respond. But if the Allies could see every U-boat, track every movement, coordinate every response, then there was no hiding, no surprise, no advantage. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Germany could build U-boats faster than the Allies could sink them. But the Allies could build merchant ships even faster, and now with centimetric radar they could protect those ships with unprecedented efficiency. The Battle of the Atlantic was over. Germany just didn't know it yet. Black May 1943 became known as Black May in the German Navy. 43 U-boats were sunk, nearly 25% of the operational fleet. Over 1,000 submariners died. Admiral Dönitz, confronted with losses he couldn't explain and couldn't stop, made the only decision possible. On May 24th, the same day U-552 was sunk, he ordered all U-boats to withdraw from the North Atlantic. It was an admission of defeat. For the first time in the war, German U-boats were retreating. The official explanation was temporary redeployment for technical upgrades. But every submariner knew the truth. They had lost the Battle of the Atlantic. The technology that changed everything, the technology that defeated them, was centimetric radar. Specifically, the cavity magnetron developed at the University of Birmingham in 1940 and refined by American engineers at MIT's Radiation Laboratory. Traditional radar operated on wavelengths of 1.5 meters. Centimetric radar operated on wavelengths of 10 centimeters, hence the name. This shorter wavelength provided dramatically better resolution and was completely undetectable by German Metox receivers. By March 1943, every Allied escort ship and patrol aircraft in the Atlantic carried centimetric radar. They could detect surfaced U-boats at 30 kilometers in perfect darkness or heavy fog. They could track periscopes at 5 kilometers. They could even detect snorkels, the breathing tubes U-boats used to run diesel engines while submerged. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. In March 1943, U-boats sank 108 Allied ships. In June 1943, they sank 28. By July, the number dropped to 17. Meanwhile, Allied merchant ship production accelerated. American shipyards were launching a new Liberty ship every 42 hours. British yards were producing escorts faster than U-boats could sink them. The mathematics that had terrified Churchill in 1942 had completely reversed. But the real victory wasn't just in the numbers. It was in the system. Centimetric radar was just one piece of a comprehensive anti-submarine warfare system that included high-frequency direction finding, HF-DUF, that could locate U-boats by their radio transmissions, improved depth charges with magnetic detonators, hedgehog forward-throwing mortars, that could attack without losing sonar contact escort carriers, providing air cover in mid-Atlantic ultra-intelligence, from decoded Enigma messages, coordinated convoy tactics developed through operational research. Each technology was effective individually. Together, they created a system that made U-boat operations completely unsustainable. German naval intelligence knew something had changed, but they never fully understood what. They suspected improved radar but underestimated its capabilities. They knew about HF-DUF but didn't realize how precisely it could locate transmissions. They never discovered that Enigma had been broken. Even after the war, many German commanders believed they'd been defeated by superior numbers, not superior technology. Admiral Dönitz wrote in his memoirs that the U-boat campaign failed because Germany couldn't build submarines fast enough, completely missing the technological revolution that had made his submarines obsolete. The survivor's perspective, Erich Topp, survived the war. He spent 2 years in a British POW camp, then returned to Germany. In 1958, he joined the new West German Navy, eventually rising to the rank of Rear Admiral. In interviews late in his life, Topp spoke about May 1943 with a mixture of respect and bitterness. Respect for the Allied technological achievement. Bitterness that so many men had died because German Naval Command refused to believe their reports. "We told them something had changed," Topp said in a 1990 interview. "We told them we were being detected by unknown means, but they kept sending us out patrol after patrol until we were all dead or captured." The Allies didn't just build better radar. They built a better system. They coordinated their technologies, shared their intelligence, adapted their tactics. We kept fighting the same way we'd always fought and wondered why we were losing. That's the real lesson of the Battle of the Atlantic. Technology wins wars, but only if you understand what you're fighting against. By June 1944, when the Allies invaded Normandy, the U-boat threat had been neutralized. Over 5,000 ships crossed the English Channel in the largest amphibious operation in history. Not one was sunk by U-boats. The invisible victory, the Battle of the Atlantic, was won by a technology most people had never heard of. A cavity magnetron the size of a human fist, producing radio waves 10 centimeters long. It changed submarine warfare forever, and it changed the outcome of World War II. The Battle of the Atlantic was won by engineers and scientists as much as by sailors and airmen. It was won in university laboratories and on factory floors, in the invisible war of technology and intelligence. If you found this story compelling, you'll want to see how similar technological breakthroughs decided other crucial battles. The invisible victories that shaped history are often the most fascinating.